Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 910, 910, September 27th, 2019, Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Boy, I'm so glad it's Friday. It's been a hell of a week. Okay, so let's talk about where we kind of picked up off yesterday. We're still on the whistleblower story, the so-called whistleblower story. Although I think now, after we have the whistleblower report has now come out, I think if you've read it, it's obvious as the nose on your face that this guy is not just some whistleblower. Not at all. This guy is a professional. This guy is an operative. This was a professional hit. A professional deep state hit. We have the New York Times telling us that this individual was a CIA officer, that he was detailed to work at the White House as a liaison between the National Security Council and the CIA. We're also told that he is male. What they don't tell us is who gave this whistleblower the dirt. Now, you have some Democrats suggesting, particularly the bug-eyed fool Adam Schiff, suggesting that there were multiple sources, and some of this is laid out in the hearings. We'll cover this in just a moment. But I'm not talking about the media reports. I'm talking about the human sources. I'm talking about whoever actually either transcribed the call, heard the call, or what have you. I'm talking about the insider who passed this information to him. Now, clearly, this individual goes directly to a professional firm that specializes in whistleblowers, who's also very connected to the CIA. Everybody here is connected to the CIA, and of course, this guy appears to be a protege of Brennan's, Mr. Potato Head. So you have the CIA. This guy is CIA. The law firm that he went to that specializes in whistleblowers is CIA. It's a CIA inside hit job. That's all it is. So, I mean, it's nothing more really than it's basically very, very similar to what they did to Kavanaugh. I mean, he is the Christine Blasey Ford of the CIA. It's essentially the same thing. It's just repackaged with some different players. It's a professional hit. Political hit. And I think that this is obvious when you read the whistleblower report. And this is exactly why they even said, when they looked at it, that he was a partisan. He was a partisan. Of course he is. Now, it looks like they are going to, he is going to be testifying for sure to the two intelligence committees, and I understand the Senate Intelligence Committee will be behind closed doors, but it looks like Adam, the bug-eyed fool Schiff, wants to have a public hearing with the whistleblower, which is insane because the whole idea is that you protect these whistleblowers. This kind of violates everything. But then again, Schiff wants the public display. He wants the theatrics. So I don't know if he's going to be successful at that, but I can honestly tell you that with what is known about this individual at this point, it's not going to be long before his name comes out. In fact, there's already a name being floated. We'll get to that momentarily. So I didn't get to watch the hearings today. We had a busy day at work, and of course I'm not in a position where I can sit down and watch hearings all day. But I did get to watch some of the highlights during lunch and a little bit when I got home from work. And I must say that Ratcliffe and Nunes was fantastic. Ratcliffe did a very, very good job as well, as usual. And a couple other Republicans did very well. But again, these hearings were like all these hearings that you see with Nadler and Schiff and all the rest. They're a shit show because there's really nothing of substance there. It's political theater. It's totally this is totally like everything else since day one when Trump was elected. These are really media operations. This is what they are. These are media operations because there's never any real facts or truth to any of it. The only thing it is to give the media gristle. And when they chew on something till it's chewed out, then they drop something else, and they chew on that for a while. When that goes stale, they break out something else. It's one thing after another. I bet you that they've got about 25 or 30 things on a list already ready to roll out. They chew on one thing until it's spent, and then they roll out the next thing, and they roll out the next thing. I bet they got things rolled out to last all the way through 2020. And I think that that's what we can expect to see. So anyway, I thought Ratcliffe did a very good job. I thought he knocked it out of the park. As he pointed out, quite honestly, that the information was secondhand information, and that this, as Ratcliffe pointed out, the whistleblower also uses a bunch of media sources. He uses Washington Post, New York Times, and various other listed about 7 or 8 media outlets that were supposedly sources. So, see, this was a big political hit. That's all this was. This was not your true whistleblower. I mean, a true whistleblower is actually going to have some actual factual information that he got firsthand, that he or she came onto or stumbled onto or what have you. It's usually very specific, very detailed, and it usually is something that's of substance. This is none of that. This is just it's a political hit. There's no crime. There's nothing illegal. There's nothing that was done wrong. There was no reason for any of this to happen. It's completely 100% political. And don't you know that we learned today that Adam the Bug-Eyed Fool Schiff has had this whistleblower thing for, well, I'm not sure exactly what day he got it, but we know that he's had this since back in August. So this has been sitting there just waiting, probably with many other things that they've got ready to roll out. So Devin Nunes, he did a great job, as usual. Of course, he's the co-chair, so he gets to make a longer statement than most. Everyone else gets a couple of minutes. Nunes gets a more generous amount of time. But Nunes laid out that the whistleblower report, the complaint relied totally on hearsay evidence. Absolutely 100% true. Total hearsay evidence. The whistleblower admits right there in his own statement that he did not hear anything firsthand, or see anything firsthand, or read anything firsthand. Everything was hearsay. All the evidence he lays out was hearsay, and most of it media stuff, just like Christopher Steele. So Nunes points out that the Inspector General did not know the contents of the phone call. The IG found that the whistleblower had a bias against Trump. The DOJ investigated and determined there was no action that was warranted. And the Ukrainian Prime Minister denied publicly, right there on camera, that he was ever pressured. At the same time, as Nunes points out, Joe Biden bragged about extorting Ukraine into firing the prosecutor who was investigating his son. 3 Democrat senators wrote a letter pressuring the Ukraine government to reopen investigations into Trump. Another Democrat went to Ukraine to pressure Ukraine's president not to investigate Biden's son. DNC operative Alexandra Chalupa, which we've talked a lot about her, worked with Ukraine officials to get dirt on Trump and associates, trying to get them to produce evidence that would show Trump and people around him having ties to Russia. And of course, we have the Ukraine official, Sergei Leshchenko, being a source for Nellie Orr. And of course, that joke, Adam the Bug-Eyed Fool Schiff, trying to negotiate with this comedian over the phone who he thought was a Ukrainian to get naked pictures of Trump. It's a shit show. It's all political theater, and it's all a political operation. All of this is a political operation, and it's a media operation in a sense, because there is no real facts. There are no real crimes or anything. It's all designed totally to feed the media so that the media can run with it 24/7. Because it's all they got. They know they cannot beat Trump at the ballot box. The only thing they can do is destroy him politically. And so it's the election strategy in 2020 by the Democrats to use this political and media strategy to drive down Republican turnout while at the same time driving up Democrat turnout. That's what it's designed to do. It's a political operation. So we'll continue to watch. Of course, as you may or may not know, the way this was timed is also very interesting, because after today, Friday, the Congress leaves town for 2 weeks. Another vacation. That's right, they just took a month-long vacation. Just got back from a month-long vacation. Now they're taking a 2-week vacation. So here, what they do, they have these hearings, and then they go on vacation. So they can give the media 2 weeks to chew on it. Now, I don't know what Pelosi's political strategy is, but it's very possible that what she's hoping for is that the media can chew on this for 2 weeks and hopefully move the polls into showing at least 50% of people supporting impeachment, so that when she comes back in 2 weeks, she can actually have an impeachment vote. Now, this is a very, very critical thing for Pelosi to do, and this is why she has not done it. Because if a speaker calls for a formal impeachment vote on the House floor and the vote fails, 99% of the time, the speaker has to resign. The speaker cannot call for an impeachment vote and lose it and still remain in her position. She would almost certainly have to step down, and that's why she hasn't called for the vote. Even though we keep hearing that she's got the votes. She's got the votes. That's what we're being told. My guess is she wants to go on vacation for 2 weeks, let the media harp on this for 2 weeks, and see if they can reinforce public support, so that these Democrats who won in these states where it was very close, or possibly red states, may have a shot at holding on to their seat. But I don't think that plan is going to work. And I'm not 100% sure that Nancy Pelosi will have the courage to call for a vote anyway. So we'll continue to watch and see how this plays out. But it's nothing. There's nothing here really to talk about. I mean, we could sit here and talk about the shit show, but you can watch that for yourself. There's really just nothing here of any substance. So let's move on to something of substance. And that is well, actually, right about now, as I'm coming to you now on Thursday night, John Solomon is appearing on Sean Hannity. And just as he said last night, on Thursday night, he was going to break a major story. And we know, because he told us basically, that he has obtained over 400 pages of documents that will reveal that Hunter Biden's legal team worked with Ukraine prosecutors to end the investigation into Biden's son. And he said this should end Biden's campaign, or maybe will end Biden's campaign. And a lot of these documents, I don't know about all of them, but a lot of these documents are documents that he got directly from the fired prosecutor, whose name I believe is Sorkin or something. These are his notes and his documents, as well as his story about exactly what happened and how he went about being fired. And basically saying, hey, Poroshenko didn't really want to fire me. He told me, hey, I really want to fire you, dude, but you know what? The Obama administration is basically saying they're going to hold up that $1 billion in loans if, in fact, I don't fire you. So I don't really want to fire you, but hey, we got $1 billion in loans writing on this, so I'm sorry, you're fired. And this is in Sorkin's statement. Now, what should be happening is that the Federal Bureau of I'm With Her, headed by no Sherlock Christopher Wray, should already be investigating this. But my guess is he's not. The DOJ should probably be investigating this, but my guess is they're not. That's kind of the sad thing about all this. It really shouldn't matter what the Democrats and the media say. It really shouldn't matter that they run these ops. None of this would really have much relevance, and in fact, they probably wouldn't do it if they actually believed this stuff would really be investigated. Because this is not something for the Democrats or the media to be looking into or investigating. Certainly, they're welcome to do so. But really, if there's real crimes here, the DOJ should be looking into it. And there is enough information now that has come out about Biden and his son and their dealings that by now there's certainly enough evidence to reach at the very least, the probable cause for Christopher Wray or the DOJ to open up an investigation. But as far as we know, there is no investigation. John Solomon is not a deputy. he cannot, he's not an attorney general. He's not a prosecutor. He can do Peter Schweitzer the same way. Schweitzer and Solomon have already put together the case. All the FBI would have to do is get a hold of their materials and verify that. And they could move forward with an indictment, multiple indictments, not just against Biden, but against other people who were involved in the corruption and the attempted cover-up of everything around the original crime. There's the original crime, and then there's the other crimes around the original crimes. But as far as we know, none of this is being investigated by the authorities, and that's whose job it should really be. I mean, the media can't prosecute anybody. Congress can't prosecute anybody. Solomon can't prosecute anybody. Only the FBI, the DOJ can do that. But at this point, for whatever reason, despite the overwhelming evidence, they don't seem to be able to bring themselves to investigate this. And that's, shows you how the swamp works. If this was a Republican, if this was Trump or someone around Trump, oh my goodness gracious, yeah, they'd be all over it. Look what they did to Papadopoulos, Michael Flynn, Carter Page. All these characters did nothing anywhere near what the rotten Reverend Clinton did, and certainly what we're finding out Biden and his kid were involved in. So I'm sure many of us will tune in and watch that segment of Sean Hannity with John Solomon. He's already released the documents. Solomon released those about 4 o'clock p.m. All these documents are there. They're there for the FBI and the DOJ to read, and they can verify them if they like. And but John Solomon is not one who normally makes predictions and does that sort of thing. But last night on Hannity's show, he said, very matter-of-factly, this would end Biden's campaign. And I'm sure it should, but not if the media provides cover, not if the DOJ and FBI refuse to investigate it. Why should Biden drop out? Now, maybe Solomon means it'll resonate enough with Democrats who look at it and go, this is just too much smoke around Joe. We're going to have to let him go, and we're going to have to move on to someone else. Now, maybe that's what he's referring to, and that's very likely as well. That's very likely as well. Okay, so the next story up here, we have the, again, I'm tired of hearing this woman's name. I'm really sick and tired of hearing this woman's name, this corrupt Obama-appointed judge, Amy Berman Jackson. Once again, she's now throwing a wrench into the Roger Stone's defense. She is not going to allow him in his case to tie his case to the Russian, so-called Russian hackers. Keep in mind, she's the one that's the judge over the case of the Russian troll farm, the Russian trolls and Russian troll farm and Concord Management. So she's tying that to Stone, but when Stone wants to use that in his defense, the role of the Russian hackers, and because this is the defense that Stone is making, part of his defense involves calling into question whether or not Russia even hacked the DNC. And of course, very few of us believe that that's actually the case. And certainly Stone believes he's got enough information. He can certainly raise enough reasonable doubt as to whether that was actually the case. I do not have to go through the whole backstory with you here about how the FBI and the Mueller team determined this fact. We know it was CrowdStrike. We know that they never actually even looked at the analytics. We know that the only thing they actually got was a partial report from CrowdStrike. They never got the evidence at all. They got a partial report. So this is what Stone's legal team is working from. But now the judge is saying, nope, sorry, you can't use that as your defense. So I don't know where the defense is going to go from here, but I would expect that they could challenge the judge's ruling. I mean, at this point, I think from the very beginning they should have challenged not only they should have challenged the judge herself and whether or not they could get a fair trial based on what they've previously seen in these other cases. And I would have even questioned the jurisdiction. But we will see exactly where this goes. But I wish Trump would just pardon Stone and get it over with. I mean, we know that the Russian collusion delusion was a hoax. The Mueller thing didn't pan out. It's all been blown out. Why is Stone even having to deal with this? So getting back to another comment on the whistleblower, of course, many of you probably have already heard this or read the tweet, but of course, Mr. Potato Head, John Brennan, came out after lunch today, I guess it was sometime this afternoon. He came out with a tweet praising the whistleblower. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, Adam Schiff told the press after the hearings that he plans on bringing the whistleblower in for testimony. And he sounds, now I know he's going to go to the Senate, but that's going to be closed door. It sounds like, from what Adam Schiff is saying, that he's going to bring him in front of in open hearings. I'm not exactly sure how that will work. I can't imagine that his lawyers would let him do that. I can't imagine his lawyers would allow that to happen. But we'll see. If it does happen, we'll know 100,000 million% for sure it's a political operation. If this guy comes and testifies publicly, now, I'll tell you how they'll play this. They will leak his name. They will come out and say, no, he doesn't want to testify. He wants to remain anonymous. While at the same time, working with their allies, they will have his name released. And they'll go, oh, his name's been released. Well, it's all been blown up. Now he can come and testify publicly. But he didn't want to. He wanted to remain anonymous. And then he'll end up in front of Schiff. And we'll get, some more circus. My, oh my. Well, we have a story today talking about how Wall Street is telling the Democrats that they will not get any donations if they nominate Chief Spreading Bull Liz Liawatha Warren. No donations if you nominate Warren. Well, that's going to be tough because the Democrats' top 5 donors are Wall Street banks. Without the Wall Street bank money, that's about half their money. And they're already way behind in fundraising. That makes things very interesting. I wonder on whose behalf Wall Street is making this statement. Because Biden is clearly toast. Bernie, they're not going to go with Bernie. That's an absolute fact. He's worse than Warren. As far as Wall Street's concerned. Who does that leave? Buddy Gag? Booty Boy? I don't think so. So who's there to fill the void? Who will satisfy Wall Street? The Rotten Reverend. Well, Kevin McCarthy pulled a nice move this morning before the hearings began. He called for a privileged motion vote in the House. And he was able to get, and what this was a privileged motion vote to say that the House of Representatives disapproves of Speaker Pelosi's actions in bringing this impeachment inquiry. So he brings up a vote to essentially get everyone to go on record as to whether or not they disapprove of Speaker Pelosi's handling of this so-called impeachment inquiry. And don't you know that there were 231 Democrats that voted for that? Justin Amash voted for it. There were 5 Democrats who were not there, and there was 3 Democrats that were not there who voted, 3 Democrats voted present, and then 5 Republicans were not there. But still, 231, that's the threshold. That's more than what you need. So clearly, right here, you have 231 Democrats plus Justin Amash willing to vote against this privilege motion that would say that Nancy Pelosi's actions that they disapprove of Nancy Pelosi's actions in bringing this impeachment inquiry. So what that would tell you is that they probably support impeachment. So, as I understand, before they head out of town on Friday, McCarthy is actually going to try to hold a vote for impeachment and to see how many he can get. And what he wants, of course, is to get these Democrats, particularly these 54, 53, 54, 55, whatever that number is, of Democrats who are in these very, very critical races in 2020 to go on the record to support impeachment. That's what he wants, which is exactly what Nancy Pelosi doesn't want. That's what she doesn't want. She wants to wait at least 2 weeks and let the media chew on this and see if when she comes back, if the public opinion polls have changed. Because that's what these 53 or so odd Democrats are watching to determine whether or not, and they're specifically looking at their district. You can bet every one of them is running polls in their district to see whether or not it's a popular idea. And I can tell you it won't be. And it still won't be in 2 weeks. Nothing's going to change. They have a chance to really give Pelosi a black eye and beat the snot out of the Democrats on this deal. And we're going to find out here in about 2 weeks. I think this is going to backfire badly. And I can't imagine Pelosi bringing a vote without already knowing how many votes she's got before she brings the vote. I don't think she's that stupid. But we'll see what sort of parliamentary tricks Kevin McCarthy can pull out of his hat. He does have some cards to play here. And he's playing these two. He's already played the first one. He'll play the second one Friday afternoon. We also had Devin Nunes in a hearing today asking McGuire about why we have these leaks coming out of the intelligence community. And he really didn't want to answer that question very much. He did everything he could to dance around it. He kind of sees it as his role to defend all the people in the so-called intelligence community. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we already know quite a bit about, thanks to the New York Times and others, and I have no doubt that the New York Times and probably many other people actually do know the identity of this person. I'm certain that Adam, the bug-eyed fool Schiff, knows. Probably other Democrats know exactly who this person is. But everyone else is trying to figure it out, okay? So we have enough facts about this individual that you can start narrowing it down to figure out who this person might be. So, Conservative Treehouse, along with information they've gathered from other sites, has concluded that they believe that the most likely candidate, who the whistleblower is, the most likely person would be this individual named Michael Berry, B-A-R-R-Y, because he was a senior NSC director for intelligence. He was part of John Bolton's staff. He is, of course, we learn, leaving the NSC position at the White House to go back to the CIA. And this exactly describes what the New York Times said, is he's an NSC guy, or he's actually CIA, who was attached to the NSC to be the CIA-NSC liaison at the White House, and now he's going to be going back to the CIA. So when you plug these factors in, you come up with this guy, Michael Berry. He was originally put in by H.R. McMaster. Remember him? H.R. McMaster, who I'm pretty damn sure was working against Trump and was a leaker. And of course, we learn that Michael Berry once worked in the Central Intelligence Agency's assassination program. He worked in the CIA's assassination program. That's interesting. So we don't know if it's this guy Michael Berry or not, but he appears to be high on the list of potential candidates. Now, like I said, this person is going to be outed. His name is going to come out. Now, what's probably more important than him, I almost even don't even care about him, but I guess we do care. We probably do care. But the person we really need to find out is who told him, if it is Michael Berry or whoever this whistleblower is, Who was it within this, because we're not talking about a large group of people here. Who was it who would have been one of the people assigned to listen to the president's calls, which, as I understand, there's 2 people who essentially transcribe the president's calls with whistleblowers. There's obviously people, a lot of the time, who are in the president's office. He's on speakerphone. Could have been someone in his staff. And that's kind of what it sounds like, because they bring up the name Giuliani. And I doubt that Giuliani said anything. Certainly there's no transcript of it. But he was probably in the White House when the call took place. Somebody knew that. So it leads me to believe that somebody who was actually in the Oval Office, or wherever they were, I assume in the Oval Office, when the call went down. We need to find out who it was that gave the whistleblower this information. And keep in mind, this whistleblower had multiple sources, and every one of them secondhand or hearsay, and most of it media sources. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the Daily Beast, you name it. You would literally get laughed out of town if you walked in and filed a whistleblower complaint based on hearsay evidence and media reports. But I swear to God, this is exactly what happened. So, clearly, as I said in the beginning of the video, this is a political hit job. It's just a matter of getting to the bottom of who's behind it. But it really won't matter, because they know it'll matter to us. Of course, it's important to put in my timeline. But the media is going to skip right over it. It's not going to be covered. It'll be completely spun. They'll move on to the next thing. As soon as a Democrat lie gets blown up, they just drop it like a hot potato, and boom, they move on to the next thing. They just literally shift focus from that. It's like the Kavanaugh thing last week. We get the Kavanaugh thing, and once it got blown up, they don't actually ever come out and say, oh, we got that wrong. We got our sources were wrong. Our facts were wrong. They never actually come out and clean up the mess. What they do is they just drop it. They just forget about it. It disappears into the ether. And then, boom, they replace it with another fake news story. And they beat on that for a couple weeks or days until that blows up. And then that just disappears into the ether and is replaced with another talking point. It's just extraordinary to watch this. And the only thing and the only saving grace that we could possibly have in all of this is if Barr and Durham actually do their damn job, and at some point in this millennium they come out and produce a report that should follow the Horowitz report, which, who knows when that'll be ready to go. But we get the FISA report from Horowitz. We should get Barr and Durham's investigation. If they do the right thing and they're honest and they actually follow the law and apply equal justice under the law, they should blow every bit of this up, and that should pretty much be the end of all of this. But it's like I've said before, I don't understand why there's no effort by the Department of Justice, by Barr, or the FBI, or anyone, to look at what's going on, identify it for what it clearly is, an attempted coup, a political circus. Somebody needs to come out and put a stop to it, and it wouldn't be hard to do. And you don't have to disclose classified information. You don't have to do anything like that. There's things that you could do if you were Christopher Wray or Attorney General Barr to put the clamp down on this type of fake news and garbage that's going on. And you just have to come out and call it out. Call it for what it is. It's obvious what it is. And someone needs to do it, and the man to do it, in my mind, is either Wray or specifically, I think, more appropriately, Barr. But it just continues to fester and go on and on and on and on and move into impeachment and everything else. And it baffles me. It baffles me why it's being allowed to go on. I just do not understand it. Now, maybe Barr and Durham are sitting back, and Barr's sitting back thinking, yeah, well, I know what they don't know. I know that 3 months from now, or 2 months from now, or 6 months from now, I'm going to drop the most incredible bomb you've ever seen. It's going to blow all this stuff up. And my contention is, yeah, well, that will be good in 3, 6, 9 months, whatever. The problem is, they're in the process right now of impeaching the president, trying to impeach the president. And in my mind, you have to come out and stop that. If you know what you know, You don't let that continue. And that's the only point I would make. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. I'm out of time. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good night. See you. Bye.